We're constantly being told that we should make the most of every moment, that we should have swum with dolphins, hiked Machu Picchu, and gone skydiving all by the time we're 30. We live in a world where expectations of extraordinary adventures and the most remarkable of achievements are piled onto every one of us. We're told that we need to be married, with kids in a house by the time we're 25, and that we need more and more extravagant stuff. We revere those with fancy cars or stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and we spend so much of our time investigating the lives of multimillionaires and celebrities. However, how much of this stuff would actually make us happier? Are we chasing the wrong things? And is there a way we can find more joy in the more humdrum aspects of life? Today we're going to be looking at Catherine Gray's The Unexpected Joy of the Ordinary. Let's dive in. Gray begins her book with a brief history of her story. Suicidal and alcoholic in 2013, Gray had been for a few years working at various gossip magazines in the UK. However, like all of us, she was starting to find life dull and hard. As somebody who was being sent to exclusive parties in London, high-end spas, and 5-star restaurant openings, Gray slowly became disenchanted with her life, always wanting more and more. She was finding what was wrong with every situation in which she found herself. After finding herself constantly thinking about suicide and hitting rock bottom with her alcoholism, Gray turned to her father and asked for help. 7 years later, and Gray has published 3 fantastic books about finding joy in some of the things that society tells us should be shunned: sobriety, singledom, and now in her 3rd installment, The Ordinary. Gray doesn't claim to be a guru, and by her own admission, is really just sharing her story towards contentment. However, she does offer a lot of insight into human nature, and calls upon scientists and psychologists to help support the realizations that she's made throughout her transformation. Gray starts by explaining the way in which our brains influence our contentment. Calling on neurologists and evolutionists, Gray points out that our brains have evolved to seek out the negative in any situation in order to try and keep us alive. Survival of the fittest should be called survival of the negative, Gray says, because there's no point in being able to outrun a predator if you don't think it's worth doing so. Gray explains that the animal parts of our brain don't really like the modern societies in which we now find ourselves and the routines that our lives seem to follow. And she encourages us to understand this negativity bias so that we can start to work with it and not constantly fight against it. Gray explores the role that hedonic adaptation plays in our life. Hedonic adaptation is a really unique quirk that allows human beings to get used to things in our lives. We bounce back from the negative things in our lives a lot quicker than we think we will, and human beings have been proven over and over again to be really bad at estimating how bad a situation is going to affect us. Human beings are capable of adapting to all kinds of upsetting experiences, including job loss, losing loved ones, and even having a terminal illness. The catch is the reverse is also true. We adapt to the good things in our life as well as the bad, such as marrying the love of our life, winning the lottery, and getting our dream job. We're very rarely satisfied with our lot in life, constantly striving to achieve the next level anytime that we do achieve anything at all. Companies take advantage of this quirk and promise us unending satisfaction if we only buy this one thing or this one experience. The pursuit of satisfaction is called the hedonic treadmill, and like any treadmill, you can run and run and run, only to find yourself in the exact same place you always were. Satisfaction always seems to be on the horizon and never within grasp. But how can we thwart hedonic adaptation? Gray explores the role of gratitude journaling, and now I know that the word gratitude itself is covered in cheese these days, but research upon research is showing that writing down just 5 to 8 things that you're grateful for in the morning or the evening each day can have unbelievably positive benefits on your mental health, your happiness, and your satisfaction in life. Gray also explores the role of random acts of kindness, and again draws on research that shows that doing kind things for other people, even if you don't know them, can have profoundly lasting positive effects for all of us. "'Tis better to give than to receive," goes the old adage, and science has shown that this is more than just a proverb. So if you find yourself struggling, if you're frustrated or upset with something, then try gratitude journaling or just doing something kind for somebody, regardless of whether you know them or not. Having explored the role of hedonic adaptation and our own negative brains on us, Gray starts to rethink all of the things that we think in life are going to make us happy, but which, when they arrive, finally don't. From finding the beauty and joy of living at home and from having lived abroad, to kind of recognizing all the burdens that having too much stuff can place upon us, Gray starts to shine a light on all of the things we think are going to bring us joy, but actually never really seem to bring us any lasting satisfaction. Gray draws upon research that shows that we're not really designed to hoard stuff. It wasn't advantageous in terms of evolution to have to carry so much stuff around. And Gray shows us that the thrill of stuff comes more from the acquiring, more from the buying, than the possessing or the having. You get a rush from buying a new garment in a store, but that rush slowly wears off the longer you have it. the more you adapt to having the thing in your life, and you can even find yourself regretting the purchase if you spent a lot of money on it. We strive to be more beautiful, more intelligent, and more socially capable, and we get a lot of our influences from the media. Why, Gray asks, do we compare ourselves to geniuses, supermodels, and celebrities? In 2018, 51% of British adults didn't read a single book, so I'm already up for most of the population, and I bet you probably are too. Gray points out how being very beautiful or being a wildly successful celebrity both come with their own sets of drawbacks. She also gives us permission to breathe out about things like still renting in later life, or not having kids or being married by the time you're in your 30s or 40s, showing us that actually we're slowly becoming the majority. Gray writes odes to some of the smaller but really beautiful aspects of life that often go unnoticed, from cleaning to lions, sunsets to cake, and it's these little odes that really give the book its colour, its life, and its breath. Statistics show that 1 in 6 of us experience depression or anxiety at least once a week, and it's really easy to think that you're on your own because we have a habit of covering up our flaws in an attempt to seem perfect to everybody else. But of course this can have very damaging, limiting, and isolating effects. We're told that we should have unending high self-esteem. However, research shows that those who rate themselves highest on self-esteem tend to be narcissists, who often hold prejudices against minorities and often engage in very risky behaviour that puts not only themselves but others in danger. Having a healthy self-esteem is great, but so is recognising your flaws, your drawbacks, the things you can improve upon, and ultimately recognising that you are just a human being. And human beings need sleep. Why, Gray asks, do we have this culture that praises people who claim they only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night? Paper after paper after paper shows that sleep deprivation has a whole host of negative effects, including depression, increasing your risk for all kinds of chronic diseases, and also early death. Rather than suggesting you're destined for greatness because you voluntarily get less than 6 hours of sleep a night, you'll probably just do an oncoming nervous breakdown. Gray looks at our relationships and the immense expectations we put on them, ourselves, and our partners. We seek perfection in a partner, expecting to share with them eternal sunshine and happiness. And if there are any bumps at the beginning, we tell ourselves that it's not worth it. If it's not perfect, you should dump them and move on, seems to be our motto, ignoring the complexities and nuances of trying to connect with somebody who has just as complicated and mosaic life as yours. To expect perfection is to set yourself up for disappointment, and also to unfairly pile pressure on somebody who's just trying to do their best in this confusing thing we call life. We even put pressure on other people's relationships. When gay marriage was made legal in the UK, Gray tells us, she had a gay friend who came up to her and lamented that he was now being bombarded with people asking him when he and his boyfriend were going to get married. We have a habit in our culture of inadvertently, or sometimes very deliberately, telling couples they need to take their relationship to the next level, even though it's nothing really to do with us. And when people do want to get married, we place enormous expectations on the wedding day, demanding that it be perfect, which is pretty risky when you consider how seldom anything in life is. The wedding industry has been for a very long time trying to link extravagant spending with longer lasting marriages. However, Gray draws upon research that shows that the opposite is actually true, that the more you spend on your wedding day and your engagement ring has an inversely correlated effect, meaning that the more you spend on your special day, the more likely you are to divorce. A shorter marriage is also correlated with things like marrying for really superficial reasons, like if your partner happens to be really hot. That's not a great reason to marry them. If, however, you do decide to break up and end the relationship, Gray tells us that that's okay too. Most relationships do end, and 4 in 10 married couples are now becoming divorce statistics. This doesn't completely remove the emotional sting of a breakup, but I hope that it can show you that you haven't failed just because a relationship or even a marriage ends. The quality of a relationship or a marriage is not to be found in its duration, but in the happiness that it brings both partners. Gray turns her attention to money and joins the collective wisdom that it can't really buy happiness. However, she does give finances their due. She draws upon research that shows that happiness does go up with earnings up to around a peak of about £50,000 to £75,000. However, after this, well-being does not go up with increased earnings. The same study that Gray is drawing this information from also shows that low income was a source of emotional misery, and we readily expect this. We need our basic human needs met, as well as having some spare income to pursue meaningful things like hobbies or interests. However, those with the highest earnings often report the least meaning in their experiences, and Gray actually draws upon research that shows that it's happy people who go on to make more money, not necessarily the other way around. "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor," Gray says, quoting Stoic Seneca. The scope of Catherine Gray's book is huge, and she covers so much that I couldn't possibly hope to cover all of it in this video, so what I've had to do is choose a few bits that I found really interesting. Truth be told, some of the most beautiful moments in this book come from the odes that Catherine Gray writes to the ordinary things in our lives. Gray sings a love song to the ordinary, and this book really can make you feel that you are enough. You are enough. You don't need to pursue relentless, extraordinary adventures, because those things make up a very small part of our lives, and learning to find joy in the ordinary things of our lives can bring us much more satisfaction and happiness. If you've read the book, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. And it's worth repeating one more time. You are enough.